The purpose of this show is to guide you to realign with habits that get you to live the life you've always dreamed of. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with Jesse Ewing. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle, where you can access your full potential right now. Finally break free from destructive habits. That dream life, if you want it, you can have it. This is where you transform your health, mind, business, and relationships. Or do nothing and keep your life the way it is. But if you're ready for change, you're in the right place. This is where you're gonna learn how to live a habit-based lifestyle. You are tuning in to the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Jesse Ewing. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle. Let's go.
How often in your life do you search for the known? You search for that friend, that old version of yourself, this past version of you, this known man, this known woman. Now, if you don't know my story, back in July 2018, the end of July, me and my family moved to Southern California to work for Wake Up Warrior, which is a coaching program for men. Since this time, I have moved offices, changed job positions, and started my own coaching business. To just recently, the last few weeks, being done working for Wake Up Warrior as a coach. And I've found myself in this unknown space. I've found myself contemplating, did I make the right decision? I found myself second guessing. Should I move back to Washington, where my wife's from, where her family is, where I owned my own business for the last 13 and a half years, where we have family? Hell, even to the point where I began to second guess my decisions. I began to second guess what I have done. You see, that one of the problems with this is emotionally I'm tied to the way things used to be. They seemed easier. They seemed consistent. They seemed a lot smoother. And let's face it, they were a lot cheaper. And yet at the same time, home represents more than all of those things. You see, I had spent the last 2.5 years coaching, traveling, training, the same time as managing my own businesses, my 2 gyms, having 20 to 24 employees. And when I first started it, it was new and it was exciting. Changes were happening and I would travel more. And what I didn't realize, what was happening was things were constantly changing because I was constantly changing. I was constantly traveling, and then I would come back and things would be the same. You see, every time I traveled, there was a challenge, a change, something different. And then I would go back and things weren't the same. Things were constantly changing. And I found myself wanting to move because when I went back, it was like going back to the old version of myself. And yet, even the people that I talked to would treat me like the old version of myself. They didn't want this change. They didn't want to see this change. And the painful reality was I wanted to go back to comfort. We all want to go back to comfort. We want to go back to the known, to where it's safe, to where we find our safety. Think about this. How many times do you hear, I want to go back to the shape I used to be in? I want to go back to my old playing days. I want to go back to my marriage where we first began dating, sex, all these things. I want to make the money I used to make. I want to be less stressed than I am now, like I used to be. How often do you catch yourself saying, I want to go back? How often do you catch yourself saying, I want to go back? You see, what if there was another way? What if you could shift that and simply begin blazing a new trail in a new life? One that is uncomfortable, one that is unknown, one that doesn't require us to go back to an old version of ourselves. You You see, most people decide in this place they're going to change from trauma, drama, health conditions, or some type of fight. Think about how many times you've had to be in some type of drama or health condition, some type of news, some type of fight, some type of trauma just to get you motivated to change. You see, now some people may be listening to this and they're like, hey, it sounds like maybe you should go back to Washington if that's how you feel. But here's what that represents. It goes back to being the old version of myself. And I don't disagree with you, but right now, home represents comfort. It represents the known. And I'm not ready to go back to that version of myself. Hell, it would be much more comfortable on my pocketbook and housing, schooling for my kids. But this will require me, by staying here, to grow to a completely different person. One that doesn't have safety, one that doesn't have security. You see, I'm forced to figure this shit out. And I watch people every single day. I get to coach people every single day who say they are so fucking committed, yet they give up and go right back to comfort. I watch people every single day say they're committed to losing weight. They're committed to changing their diet. They're committed to doing all these things. And this time, they're going to lose the weight. And within 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, they're right back to the version of themselves. I watch people every single day. I'm committed to my marriage. I'm committed to taking my wife on date night. I'm committed to leaving my wife daily messages. And then the minute their wife doesn't respond, guess what? All of a sudden, they're not so committed. I watch wives tell me how committed they are, yet they use their kids. CEO moms, I watch you. If this is you, use your kids as an excuse why you can't show up, why you can't work out, why you can't do all these things. You use your kids as an excuse. And I get it, but is it really getting you what you want? Or do you just find comfort in that? Because the pain of uncertainty is unbearable and it hurts. I want. Your mind says one thing, but your body says another. And yet this is what you're asking for. You see, the minute you declare to change, be ready for the most uncomfortable shit to emerge and be ready to go back to the old version of yourself, and not just go back to it, be ready to go running back to it. You see, in order for you to really change, you're going to have to reprogram your brain. All routines and habits will have to change. Our environment has to change. You can learn and change in a state of pain and suffering, or you can learn and change in a state of joy and inspiration. The difference of those two is one is waiting for trauma, drama, a fight, or something else to take place to motivate us to change. The other is just choosing, hey, I'm starting to feel real comfortable in this place. I think it's time I change. So how can you begin this process of change that we're talking about? Here is one proven method of change that I live by and have found that works for me. Number one is to get out of the past. You see, all the emotions we have are tied to the past thinking, tied to the past programming, past way of living. And really what this is this represents our known patterns and behaviors, our known comfort. You see, where I lived in Washington wasn't working, but it was comfortable. The business I had, it was working and it was comfortable, but I wasn't working. I wasn't working in it. Hell, even the place that I had when I first came down here, it represented comfort because I had some security. And the minute that went away, things began to shift. Things began to shift on how I showed up in my business. All of a sudden, I roll out a brand new book, a podcast, and I launch my own business all within 30 days. But that's because I was willing to leave the land of comfort. How do I get out of the past with my nutrition and something I've tried to stop eating for so long? How do I get out of the past if I've tried to lose weight? Maybe I've tried to go back to the money I've made. Maybe I'm trying to go back to the relationship I had with my wife or my husband. You see, all these past behaviors and past emotions are tied to one thing. They're tied to the past. And if you haven't released them, you're going to continue to go there. So the number one way you can begin to do this is to begin to release this emotions on paper. Even just writing down, hey, at the top, diet, all the times, all the emotions attached to diets, to weight loss, maybe even in your marriage, all the emotions that are tied to that. And then going somewhere where you can release all that and yell it out, let it all out. And the more that you give yourself permission to let it out, guess what will happen? You'll begin to put something else back in there. And you'll be surprised what happens when you let this out. You'll no longer be held captive by these past traumas, past drama, past fights with your wife, your husband, your spouse, coworkers, family members, whatever it is. But the reason you continue to hold on to pain is because it's tied to an emotion from the past. Pain is not present unless it's tied to something else. And that pain is always tied to an emotion of the past. Think about it. In the present moment, we very rarely feel pain, at least from our thinking. But our emotions take us back to past events. And once you've done this, once you've begun to open up this black hole and take out these traumas and these situations, we're going to have to start filling it in with a new habit. This is where the real power is. And you can't quit something or can't stop thinking about something or an emotion from the past without releasing it and replacing it with a new habit. This is where you begin the uncomfortable process of change. And this is why most people at 4 weeks, 3 weeks, 5 weeks of this change, they go back because they want to find comfort. They want to find the known. They want to find what's certain. The only thing that's certain is uncertainty. Uncertainty in the world, not uncertainty in ourselves. This is where true, real change begins to take place. And just start experiencing forgiveness. Start experiencing this gratitude that you're able to put back in there. And maybe it's just gratitude with yourself. Listen, it's easy, like I've talked about on other podcasts, it's easy to be grateful for other people, but to actually be grateful for yourself and forgive yourself for maybe some traumas or dramas that you've been through in your life, that is where we begin to fill in that hole of uncomfortable. Listen, if you're comfortable, at some point, it's going to come back and affect you. If you're feeling uncomfortable, guess what? You're probably going the right way, and it's okay. So I'm going to leave you with this last thing. Listen, if you are looking for more information, you want to join a group of like-minded people, I have a habit-based lifestyle secrets group on Facebook. I'd love for you to be a part of it. You can check out the show notes. The link is inside there. Every month, I enroll people into a program that is called the 30-Day Habit Bootcamp. This is an opportunity for you to optimize your life, increase your potential as a human being. This isn't about doing the work. This is about being the work, and being means you being more. I would love to hear from you. I would love for some feedback, some reviews. You can message me, jesse@habitbasedlifestyle.com. You can also check out my website, habitbasedlifestyle.com. Until next episode, have an awesome day.
The purpose of this show is to guide you to realign with habits that get you to live the life you've always dreamed of. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with Jesse Ewell.